Hey friends, welcome to the Determinetruth Podcast, where we equip the church to be the church.
Hey everyone, welcome in. Happy post-Christmas, happy pre-New Year. Hopefully you laid off the eggnog. Rob, you're not an eggnog guy.
No. I just go straight for the hard stuff. I'm assuming that's what you meant, by the way. I have no idea because eggnog's not bad. So I'm assuming that you're talking about eggnog.
Well, there's the adult eggnog and then there's the kids eggnog.
Okay, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah. My son was very bummed out when he couldn't have eggnog the other night. And I'm like, nope, bud, not this one.
Oh, he got in it anyways.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyways.
Although funny joke, he did think. So you don't know about beers, but Guinness is Guinness, a beer. Obviously, like you have the Guinness Book of World Records. That same Guinness, this guy was a Christian man who created
Guinness is his grandson.
Yes, the great philosopher, right? So Guinness, the man who created the beer, actually was a Christian man wanting to create a low alcohol content beer, so people weren't getting as drunk. Okay. And so he did that. And it's this beautiful dark color, right? It's very dark. And so Mateo thought it was chocolate milk because it's this kind of brown creamy color. Suffice it to say, we had a very good scared straight moment where he's not going to be trying beer anytime soon.
Really?
Yes.
That's funny.
That's what happens when you try to sneak dad's chocolate milk.
So the reason why Mateo is 8 years old and goes to AA is because he had a bad Christmas experience.
Yeah,
with dad's Mateo, and I like Guinness. So.
Yeah, they don't take dad's stuff, buddy. This is the wrap you will receive. Anyway, we are doing a podcast, and so this is our kind of not a full podcast. This is a different type of podcast. Although you wouldn't know it by now because we're already screwing around. But first thing we want to do is we actually have a kind of a surprise on the back end that we're going to replay one of our favorite episodes from this year, from one of our favorite guests. But we'll talk about that in a second. As we kind of look back and reflect on 2025 and look forward to 2026, I don't know. You have any highlights of this year and things you're looking forward to for next year? Not even just in the podcast, but in Determinetruth world.
Well, we've launched the YouTube channel and started getting more YouTube videos and things like that going. Obviously, we got the studio up here that you helped me with.
Actually, we should note that because if we get followers who are not video podcast people, they're totally okay with doing audio only. They might not realize that the YouTube channel isn't just the podcast. You put a ton of content up there.
Yeah, we're recording several things every single week. So we have a Revelation Revealed series of videos that we put up for 15, 16 weeks, which was looking at key parts of the book of Revelation to say, what was John's message to the churches then? And then how does that apply to us today? So kind of a political, ethical, moral look at Revelation. And then I'm doing another series called The Book of Revelation. And every week I put up about a 15-minute or less video walking through the book of Revelation. And it's designed for personal study, individual study, or group study. And if you watch those videos with a group and you want to have me come in and meet on a Zoom call, totally open to do that. And so walking through the book of Revelation 1 week at a time, 15 minutes at a time. It's great. So
that's good. Yeah,
and we'll do a lot more of that in 2026 with finishing Revelation. Then we have plenty of other series lined up as well.
So youtube.com/Determinetruth is I think that's the webpage or the YouTube handle. So tons of content is going up on there. So that's something that we did this year. We also helped start a Bible college this year.
Yeah.
With Karuna, which we've had a couple episodes on, but do you want to give any kind of overview on that? Because we haven't given like an update or what's happening there.
Yeah, we meet with a group of pastors that Karuna brings to his facility once a month for Monday through Friday. They meet. They have a local indigenous pastor teacher who teaches them on Mondays. Then I teach on Monday night, which is Tuesday for them, and Tuesday night, which is Wednesday for them. And then they process, meet, fellowship throughout all that. And then you and Danny, I think Danny teaches on Wednesday. You teach Wednesday night, which is Thursday for them, and Danny teaches Thursday night, which is Friday for them. And we do it once a month. So we have basically a 10-month curriculum. They take a month off in December. They take a month off for the monsoon season in July. And then we have a year-long curriculum with a program. These are pastors that are poor. They've had no education or Bible training whatsoever. And we're just really giving them foundational material on how to understand Bible, theology, pastoral studies, and equipping them. So it's fantastic stuff of what Karuna Carr is doing. And then we're able to participate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great leader. We love that guy. He does a fantastic job. And it was really cool too. And you've obviously known him a lot longer. I've worked with him probably for a year and a half now, for, maybe a little longer, for filling in for you for teaching. It's crazy how much he's improved in his own communication skills, because he's our interpreter, and that's a tough job. Or, sorry, a translator. Be interpreter. Yeah, interpreting. Either way, translator, interpreter. Yeah. And he's just doing such a great job. He's learning. You could tell that, like, he's just growing in this. And for me, that's fun to watch, because I don't know about you, like, as a teacher, I don't know what the people in the room are getting out of it, but I could see the effect that Karnakar is getting out of it, and so that's really cool for me to watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Next year, what are some hopes or some plans that we have for Determined Truth, even outside the podcast?
Danny and I are going to...
The podcast might finish the New Testament this year, so that would be fun.
Well, we already did Revelation, so it's a possibility. Yeah,
like after this, I mean, we're almost done with
Philemon, Hebrews, and then the James,
the
Peter, and John, all that good stuff. Yeah.
So look at that. We might finish in 2023.
Danny and I are traveling to India in March for a week, where we'll do on the ground. It's really important for them to see us in person, and for them to gather several hundred leaders to say, hey, this is what we do every week on the Zoom calls, what we do every week in the Bible college or in the Bible training. So for Marcus up in Delhi, and for Karunakar down in Pitagurala. So we'll spend a couple days in each location doing pastoral training for, we're limited in northern India because they can't have gatherings of more than 150 people without telling the government. And they don't want to tell the government it's a Christian gathering, because that just creates problems for all the pastors and stuff. So we will have about 150 or more, and then on 2 days in Delhi, and then we have 300 to 400 people or more in Pitagurala for a couple of days. So it'll be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's in March. You said that's going to happen.
Yep. And we have, by the way, I hired a social media marketing firm to help with TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook posts and YouTube Shorts. So if you see those things, it'll make it worthwhile to like the post, comment on the post, share the post. All that tells these algorithms, hey, this is getting a lot of attention, because otherwise the algorithms they like people being angry, they like people being swearing, they like them calling names, they like fiery comments and responses, and we're not doing anything like that. And so we are lower on the totem pole, and we've almost reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is not a big deal, but that does change the algorithms, and it says, hey, this channel is worth promoting more. So if you can share that with other people and get them to sign up as well. So promise them, I don't know, a prayer hanky.
Yeah, but that is the thing, and this is where we would appeal to you, our listeners, especially our regular listeners. You guys are part of this. Like, absolutely. Rob and I aren't getting this huge paycheck, and that's why we're just producing this for whoever listens. Like, we're literally doing this for you, and so help us out. Like, you play such an important role in this, and I am talking to you individually, like whoever you are, I'm talking to you. And I would watch these videos for years, and people would make those kind of appeals, and you think, oh, someone else has got this, or he doesn't really mean this. This is a big deal. So I would even say, as an end of the year pledge, and we could kind of start talking about this, some of the things that we really need help on. Like, the first one is just on our social media stuff. When you see the YouTube videos come across, give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, give a subscribe. Engage in the comments in some kind of way. If you're a regular person, if you have not already followed the Determined Truth Facebook page, and when you see our posts up, go ahead and like them and comment on them or whatever. That seriously helps us, and you guys are going to be the people who kind of propel this thing forward. Leave a review if you have not already on our podcast app, whether it's Spotify or Apple or whatever. Like, you are just as much part of this as we are, and I know we have regular listeners who listen to this every week and have for years. Help us out, please be a part of that. So that's the first thing we could ask for when it comes to.
Now, that was for the regular listeners. The ones that are irregular, just take some medicine and get them regular, and then follow those instructions.
I am having many issues right now with irregular verbs at home, and so that just triggered me. I have a second.
You're going to go in a direction that we shouldn't be going.
No. Regular, okay. No. That's why you take Metamucil.
This podcast sponsored by
Oh, I would love that. Sponsored part by Metamucil.
We could do a really good.
The Xylem fibers help keep you regular, so you'll have nice, smooth poops.
I'll be right back.
Great timing. That was solid, bro. Okay, so with that, we not only do we need just people's help in terms of social media and engagements and that sort of thing, we need financial help.
Sure.
Like, we're a 501c3. We are a legitimate nonprofit organization, and we function purely based on generosity and donations, tax deductible donations of people. And it's the end of the year, and this is the best time, one of the best times of the year to ask, because you have that expendable money. And this is just one of the things we're saying. Hey, would you consider helping partner with us in any kind of way that you can? So I don't know what when we ask for money, which we both hate doing,
right?
What are some of the things that money goes to help out do, Rob? When someone gives,
really, it helps facilitate obviously the things that we do in India. It helps facilitate we don't have a lot of expenses other than production expenses for the podcast and for the videos, platforms, subscriptions to StreamYard or whatever it might be for the various platforms, but it helps facilitate the things that we're doing. And the way I would put it, Vinnie, is this really quick anecdote here. I was filming a presentation on Revelation chapter 7 for the YouTube channel on the Book of Revelation series. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll show a little video from some clip of a popular end times guy who says the 144,000 or some whatever whacked out view. And I went up to find this little clip, and I'm looking at these clips, 1.3 million views, 3.2 million views. And I'm thinking, holy Toledo. These guys get millions of views for saying all kinds of whacked out stuff that has nothing to do with the gospel of the kingdom. And we're getting a few hundred views, 1,000 views or whatever views. We're excited if we get 1.4 thousand views on something. And so the reality is people don't want to hear some of the things that we're saying because we're preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Love your neighbor, love others as the Lord has done for us. Lay down your life for the neighbors, crucifixion of Jesus. Blessed are those who are persecuted, and blessed are the poor and the meek. And we're being a voice for the poor, the marginalized, and all kinds of other issues, and it doesn't attract a lot of attention. So our donor base is simply not there in terms of, and we're not going to play that game. We're not going to do those things, So, we only swear after the camera goes off.
And then, man, this is like we're like a couple.
And then we go get Mateo wasted, is what we do.
Oh gosh, he's
yeah. Anyways,
it's that chocolate milk, man. Daddy's chocolate milk. But no, we seriously, we could consider that as we come into the end of the year. On the screen right now we have, it's determinetruth.com/give, and we also link in the show notes to that. But if you would consider doing that either as a one-time gift or as an ongoing gift, that would be greatly appreciated. And that helps us.
And when you do give, make sure you know that you have to choose a bucket for Rob, a bucket for Vinnie, or a bucket for Danny. If you want to split between Vinnie and myself, then just make two contributions, one for $5,000 to Rob, one for $10,000 to Vinnie.
10,000. Yes. Very good. Very good.
That's totally fine. Just split it up.
Yeah. Well, what a giver you are. See, that's the kind of people you're supporting. Like even Rob said, no, double it up. Give Vinnie the double portion.
Absolutely. Like, you can see clearly needs it more than I do.
I need the double portion. Yeah. So good stuff. Okay. Well, hey, we're not going to do a full episode today. It's kind of some banter stuff, but we did want to replay. We had so many great conversations and some really amazing guests on. We're going to replay when we had Gary Burge on in the summertime in July, I think it was, when we were going through Colossians.
Right.
And I don't know if folks realize, because sometimes we don't know with biblical scholars, if you're a layperson, you don't know these names. But for me, for the last 10 plus years, Gary Burge is legitimately one of those guys where if I have to do a study on a New Testament topic, he's like on my Mount Rushmore of, okay, has Gary written on this yet? Because there's certain people who are special, they do specialties in certain things, but there's always those people I go to. It's like, okay, has N.T. Wright, Michael Bird, Doug Moo,
Rob Dalrymple,
or Gary Burge written on those things. And those are always my guys. Like, I want to hear what they have said on this. And so it's a kind of a big deal, not just because of me, but he's just a great scholar, and he's made so many great contributions to the evangelical world over the last number of decades. So do you have guys like that where you're always like, okay, I'm studying something, I wonder if this guy has written, or this person has written on it yet? Like who are a couple of years? I know N.T. Wright is a big deal for you.
Yeah, and Michael Gorman certainly of those.
Yes.
Scott McKnight, maybe he's like down on the bottom of the Mount Rushmore. Don't want him to don't want to go to his head.
Don't want to go to right.
Yeah. Marianne May Thompson, of course, try to find some female authors just to see to fit in there as well. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. So
Richard Balcom, how about that one? Richard Balcom.
Oh gosh, yeah. Every time you name these things,
it's gold. Yeah,
and even there, it's like you're naming people. It's like, oh, how could I forget Gorman? How could I forget McKnight? How could I forget
David De Silva?
How can you forget David De Silva? Yeah. All these, and these are all, with the exception of N.T. Wright, those are all people we've had on the podcast.
Yeah,
which has been a blast. So
yeah,
great.
We can only invite Christians.
Very true. Hey, we hope you enjoy the replay of this. We don't have this on video because this is a BV before video, but you could listen to the audio, and hope you enjoyed this conversation we had with Gary on the book of Colossians, which is related to the book of Ephesians because they're similar. I think Philemon. He touched, and I was going to say in Philemon and even Timothy, because Timothy is in Ephesus. So this stuff all connects, right? So all the pieces matter. All right, everyone. Hope you have a great New Year celebration, and we'll see you in the new year.
Welcome to the Determinetruth Podcast.
Want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Where we aim to explore questions of truth, the scriptures, and what it means for the church today. Here are your hosts, Rob Dalrymple and Vinnie Angelo.
Hey everyone, welcome in. We are wrapping up our series on Colossians. And so, as we normally do, we bring in a guest to discuss some aspect of the book. And I'm really excited. This is a return guest for us. One of my favorite New Testament scholars of definitely of this last generation, but he's been very influential for me, and I know for many of our listeners. Rob, who do we got today?
Before we go there, I think I need to cover something, Vinny.
Oh, here we go.
Last week, we addressed you telling your son to have fun at the dentist. And I was wondering if he had fun at the dentist, or did he realize that his father was lying to him the whole time?
Because it was last Tuesday, right?
I think it was.
So he got there and found out he had a cavity. And so right now, as we speak, he's there getting his cavity filled.
Did you tell him to have fun again this morning when he left?
He did. He is getting laughing gas.
Okay.
So
I just want to be clear.
We'll find out. So we'll give an update next week on how Mateo did at the dentist, our little 8-year-old.
Yeah,
so,
traumatized by his
still father. Give toys to children?
No, but he gets like sunglasses, and he comes out with this whole swag bag of stuff. It's way better than just toys.
There you go.
It's Oprah. They get a car and everything. Anyway, our guest interrupted, man. Everyone's going to know now.
Oh, now they know. I can delete that from the episode. Okay. It won't come through. We're excited to have Gary Burge. Gary is a professor of New Testament and is now located in Western Michigan. After teaching at Wheaton College for 25 years, he joined the faculty of Calvin Theological Seminary, where he eventually became the dean of the faculty. He retired in 2023 and now teaches part-time in Calvin's PhD program. Gary's written extensively on the Gospel of John, the historical Jesus, and the contextual and cultural background of the first century Judea as a framework for interpretation. He has several volumes in the Ancient Context, Ancient Culture series, which are really fun and readable book or booklets on biblical backgrounds.
Yep.
He's well known for his New Testament and Antiquity, which is used widely as a textbook in colleges. And most recently, he's completed commentaries on Galatians, Ephesians, Colossians, and Philemon. Gary is ordained in the Presbyterian Church USA and is a frequent speaker at conferences, retreats, and churches. While at Wheaton, he was on the teaching staff at Willow Creek Community Church for 15 years. He's also deeply invested in the Middle East and his churches from Iraq to Egypt and travels there annually. He's often called on to interpret the Israel-Palestinian conflict at American churches and denominational settings. His book, Whose Land, Whose Promise, was instrumental in helping me to grasp what is happening in Israel-Palestine. By the way, Gary, have I ever told you how I found that Whose Land, Whose Promise, how I came across that?
No,
I was reading your commentary on 1 John, and it was the first footnote in that commentary, I believe on like page 1. I'm like, oh, I got to read this because I was just getting attuned to the whole issue of Israel-Palestine. So anyways, welcome, Gary. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Rob, for that very generous introduction. As a friend of mine once said, that's a whole lot of gravy for a very small turkey.
What a great line. That's fantastic.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Vinny. Oh,
yeah. No, I'm the gravy. You're
right.
The turkey, but
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. But it's been a real privilege to be able to be involved. Many of us could do the things that I've done. It's just that I had opportunities. I was in an academic setting, and I had the support for that kind of work. And But it's been a real blessing to be able to bless the church, frankly.
Right.
Pastors write to me and they say, oh my gosh, my sermons have been helped. When somebody says to me, wow, I understand the scriptures better than I ever have before, or I've been able to put together a sermon series because of what you've done, that's how I get paid. That is the inspiration that keeps me going. And my work on Colossians here is new territory for me, but I'm finished with it now. And it's just the same kind of thing. I really hope that it will bless the church.
Great. Just as a caveat to that, it's interesting because there's people who are listening to this podcast who have been in my classes that I've taught in local churches who have gone through like the Gospel of John. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, Vinnie, you're making John come alive. And I'm like, I'm just lifting this stuff from Gary. So actually you are like the grandfather of the classes that I've taught. So yeah, if people are listening who have been in my Gospel of John classes over the years, you could thank Gary.
Okay. Thanks, Vinnie. You guys are killing me.
Yeah, so, that's our
we just got started, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Nice. Anyway, Colossians is so different than the Gospel of John. It is new territory. And when I was asked to do it, I thought, wow, do I know anything about this? And it has just been a remarkable ride. And I have learned a great deal about it. And I think anybody who looks at a book like this will too.
Great. That's good. Let's start this conversation then. And in our podcast, we only do a couple weeks on each book. So we give overviews, we look at themes and whatnot. Right. For you, what would you say is the central theme or the theological heartbeat of the book of Colossians?
Yeah. Great question, Vinnie. And everybody wants to take a shot at that. What is the central theme? And you're going to hear Christology is the central theme. I think that's getting the cart before the horse. I think fear is the central theme.
Wow.
And I think that has come to me because before I wrote the commentary, I spent a great deal of time just reconstructing what religious life or any life was like in Anatolia. Now, that is Western Asia Minor, today Turkey. So the location of Colossae, we actually can learn today. In the last 30, 40 years, we've learned a great deal about its material culture and its philosophical outlook, what the Romans were doing, what religions were doing. And so I think once I got my head around what ordinary life was like in that world, suddenly then I go back to Colossians and the lights come on. I think sometimes what we're doing is reading Colossians, and we love that section at 115 that talks about high Christology. And we're reading it because we want to champion the Council of Nicaea, maybe. But that's not what's going on there exactly. Okay. So, yeah, Nicaea rightly used that section. Okay, that's fine. But Paul is a pastor, and he's answering pastoral questions. I have to actually give credit to, I think, a number of scholars who have done just an amazing job. But Clint Arnold stands out. Clint Arnold is probably the most skilled expert technician on this kind of reconstruction of the material culture of that world. And I think the book is called The Colossian Syncretism or something like this. And it's a monograph. It's very technical. And I'm recommending it to scholars, but it is, it's a technical work. But once you plow your way through it, you can see all of the evidence that we can put together to establish what people were feeling. So all of that is to say, once you have an idea of what people's real lived experience was in a town like Colossae in the first century, then go back and read Colossians, you suddenly see that, oh my gosh, this is the gospel. The gospel is not a Trinitarian proclamation. The gospel is actually about the intervention of God through his agent Christ, who has infiltrated the world and defeated the powers. Wow. And once I figure out how powerful Christ is, then suddenly I can relax inside of my world because my attachment to Christ makes my life more life-affirming, more confident, more powerful, and I'm not subject to a whole pantheon of divine beings that are out there to control me.
Could you give a little more background about when you say fear? And I'm like, even looking at that hymn in verses 15 through 20.
Right.
Are you talking about the things, all the things that Christ created, even the dominions and rulers that you even can't see? Is that playing?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. So let's just put it this way. Both inside of Roman imperial religion, which was dominant throughout the period, there's also a common folk religion that is alive and well. And we can think of the mystery religions, but we can think of this common religion that comes all the way back from the culture that dominates the entire area is the Phrygian culture, or Phrygian, people say it both ways, Phrygian culture. It goes back 500 years before Paul, 800 years before Paul. We don't know. It controlled the entire area. And this was living alongside of Rome's imperial religion that just layered right on top of that. Now, both the Romans and the average people who were living inside of this period believed they had a duty to pacify the gods. What do I mean by the gods? I'm not talking about gods on Olympus or something. I'm talking about the divinities or the supernatural beings that lived between us and the ultimate gods. And these beings needed to be appeased through what they called my piety. So therefore, imperial religion, let me start there. Rome would succeed and be blessed and have military victory and flourish because the temples and the priests and the sacrifices and the ordinary Roman citizens all were living lives that acknowledged these Roman imperial gods and pleased them. So pleasing the gods was a very important thing because they controlled your fate. Now, the average person lived with this concept that my fate is not my own. It is entirely controlled by these beings for good or for ill. And while I may not believe in the imperial gods that Rome promoted, nevertheless, I had a worldview that said my environment right above me, above my life, I'm an earthly creature, but there is a whole sort of hierarchy of divine beings that live over me, and some are malicious and some are nice, but I live wary. I live wary of what my own life is going to be like, because if I ignore them, or if I offend them, or if I do things which they disapprove of, or things like this, then they have the capacity to destroy me. They can destroy me through famine. They can destroy me through conquest. They can destroy me through the loss of my own business. Very simple things. So I live with this weight over me all of the time. And those people who have successful lives are being blessed by God. It isn't that they are more skilled. It is that they're being blessed by the gods, and the gods smile on them. So there, and Clint Arnold just plays this out beautifully. He does. Wow. And he gives, so therefore all of the things, what are the things that I have to do is the question. I have to observe certain rituals. I have to observe certain calendars. I have to appear at certain places. I have to avoid certain foods. I do all of these things in order to engender the good pleasure of these spirits. We'll call it spirits.
Okay.
Now, Judaism is living in this period, in this environment as well. And we think that happens everywhere in the world, Judaism, Christianity. We end up with this kind of blend where we pick up these feelings and from other folk religions. And nobody will be surprised if I say so much of Christianity has been shaped in America by civil religion.
Yep,
that's obvious. That happened in Colossae as well.
Right.
So Jews were living with these ideas. Christians could be susceptible to these ideas. So how do I solve this? I can live a life that conforms to the expectations of these spirits, and I can find mystical priests, and I can find shamans, really, we would call them shamans technically, who would actually guide me through this. But both Jews and actually folk religious leaders, mystery religion, said, you can actually travel to those places. You can travel to these places. And these places, some people call them angels, but you could actually travel to these places and you could actually live inside of these and make appeasement with them on a personal level. Is that crazy or what? Right. But the goal of my life is to give myself security, confidence. And by gum, that's exactly what goes on in everybody's heart even today.
Okay, so
I wonder, does the future going to wreck me? Or is the future going to bless me? And there, we think that our eschatology usually is the White House. They thought that eschatology is sitting right over them in this intermediate zone filled with divinities. Go ahead, Rob.
No, that's excellent, Gary. So there's two questions I have that I think we're going to get to as we go that you've set the background for. The first question then will be, how does the Christ hymn of chapter 1 fit into this context?
That's
and
right.
the second question, which we'll ask in a second, then would be the Colossian heresy, whatever that was, the syncretistic in chapter 2. So start with chapter 1. You got this Christ hymn. What's Paul telling them if they're living in this fear?
Exactly right.
And now they're adopting Christ, which says ignore the gods, or what's Paul saying, and how's Christ hymn fit into?
So therefore, what Paul wants to say, so you can imagine that this is like a 3-decker universe, if you want, but don't put hell in this, okay? So what you have is my life here, which is terrestrial. I have a whole world of divine beings over me with lots of names given to them. And then I have, as a Jew, Paul is going to say, and then God lives above all of this mess.
Okay.
Now, so the gospel here is that God himself, through his Son, has descended into our terrestrial world. And in his descent, he has conquered any of these powers that got in his way. So therefore, as I live in this world and I have attached myself, I am not attaching myself to a superior spirit. That's the key. I am attaching myself to Christ, who comes from God himself, and therefore any who live in this pantheon are subject to him. So it's really about power. It's about power, because in an environment of fear and control from these other beings, I then know that I don't have to appease them because Christ is more powerful than any of them.
And that's why Paul says Christ is the fullness of deity in bodily form.
That's exactly right. This pleroma, this word that is used in Greek, fullness, is something that is used all of the time in Greek philosophy. It's used in Roman religion. It is the ultimate experience somebody is going to have if they are encountering the one true God. So therefore, he is the one who is not bearing, shall we say, reflections of God, or he's not a striver who lives below God. He is actually bearing the very personhood, the very essence of who God is, plowing right through this intermediate environment and showing that God is dominant. He is not a competitor to that environment. He is dominant over that environment.
Wow.
Now, the thing is that you and I have a really hard time imagining that kind of religious world because we simply don't have it.
Right.
If I spent some time in Africa, and when you go to Africa, you actually see this in full scale. Well, can I give you guys an illustration with a story that would help?
Of course.
Hey everyone, we want to thank you for joining us on today's podcast. And we want to remind you that everything we provide at Determined Truth is free of charge. And this even includes all of the teaching that Rob, Danny, and myself do on a weekly basis in our online Bible studies, live streams, and our coaching for pastors in India and around the world. We don't have any supporters who get special behind-the-scenes access, but we can only do this with the generous support from those of you who can afford to give. So if you'd prayerfully consider supporting us with a fully tax-deductible donation, with anything from $5 a month or more, we will continue to challenge the church to be the church. To give, go to Determinetruth.com and click on the Give tab, or find the link in today's show notes. Thanks.
Okay. So I was in Zambia, northern Zambia, in a wonderful city called Ndola. I was teaching at a seminary there. And my students, of course, were all Zambians. They were from all over, but they were all Africans. And I began hearing stories from a lot of these students about how they understood the importance of Christ. And for me, it was, I was Trinitarian. I was saying the importance is knowing the Apostles' Creed. And they said, no, you think it's all about reason, getting things right. We understand Christ is about power. I said, give me an example. Big discussions in class. So I'll give you one. So I have a guy in class, a student, about 25 years old, married to a lovely woman, newly married, and her father, he called him a witch doctor. I think we call him a shaman, but they use the word witch doctor over there.
Wow.
Anyway, her father objected to the wedding. He said, no, are you kidding me? This guy's a Christian. He denies everything I do because he understands that he is the, shall we say, the custodian of power. That's what he is. He can curse you. He can put a blessing on you, but he's the custodian of power. He can heal you. He can make you sick. It's amazing what he can do for you. Anyway, so he said, this kid denies everything about what we know to be true. You're not going to marry this kid. So anyway, they were in love. So how do you solve this? So here's the story he told me. He said, so I decided I need to get to know this man. And the man would never talk to him. The shaman would never talk to him. And so therefore, when he was walking to my class from his village home, he would always walk right past the shaman's house. It was filled with all these magical implements. And what the shaman began to realize is that whenever this darn kid walked by his house, he lost all of his spiritual power. And he said, all of my implements, all of these magical bones, all of these spices, nothing's working. What's the matter here? Who is sabotaging me? Wow. And he would look out the window, and it was always the same guy.
That's cool.
So he confronted this guy, and he said, what's up with you? What is it? Do you have more powers than I do? And his answer was, love it. This preaches.
Yeah.
This, of course, I don't have any powers. I'm not a shaman. I'm not a witch doctor, but it is Christ who dwells in me, and it is his power that is darkening the powers in your house.
Wow.
And it kept happening constantly. And so finally the witch doctor said, okay, so this boy has more power in him because of Christ than I do, and I would like my daughter to have a piece of that.
Oh, cool.
So his agreement to let his son marry his daughter, the boy, to marry his daughter, was based entirely on a power transaction.
Wow.
The shaman felt that suddenly there is a new power in town, and it's called Christ, whoever that is. So I asked him more, and I said, okay, so what gives you comfort? Why are you a Christian? He said, the reason that I'm a believer, Dr. Burge, is because I no longer fear witch doctors.
Oh.
I no longer fear, because I know that Christ can defeat every one of them.
Wow.
Now, I looked at the rest of the class and I said, is this a crazy story?
Yeah.
And they all laughed. And they said, oh, you Americans.
You white men.
And so it said to me that I have what we would call an epistemology that needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
My understanding of reality needs to be corrected, because Paul's reality and that African reality have a lot in common. They are sharing a view that says reality is populated by spiritual beings that you cannot even see, but they're affecting you every single day. So the gospel, the good news that we have here in 115 is that who has come into the world that I live in? It's the one who's created everything. He is the master of all. The master has come home. And therefore, any power that comes into proximity with him is going to shudder. So therefore, I live confidently inside of this world. Christ has defeated fear, because Christ in his power can defeat the powers that are making claims all around me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this sounds a lot like, Vinnie, if you remember, we had Sandra Glahn on. I don't know if you've seen Sandra Glahn's work on Ephesus and Artemis. And she was talking about how women will be safe through childbearing. It was this fear that if you deserted Artemis, who is the protector of the ones giving birth, what are you going to do? And Paul's answer is, Christ will protect you through childbearing. Don't worry about it. It wasn't this idea of justification through having children. It was actually this literal fear of, what am I going to do if I desert Artemis?
That's
right. The same story.
So I think, in my mind, the choice to become a Christian is a really enormous choice. It isn't just like me deciding to become a Christian here in my world. No, this is a choice to potential. If you, in Colossae, decide to become a Christian, to bring Christ into your life, if you're wrong about this, all of those dark powers are going to come after you like you never imagined.
Wow.
So this whole decision to become a follower of Christ, it isn't just to be, follower of Christ means I'm obedient to Christ. And that's that's the second half of Colossians. I get that.
Yeah.
But to become a member with Christ, to attach myself to Christ, to have him in his spirit dwell in me, that's the gospel for the Colossians. That Christ, therefore, is not just an idea or not just simply a rabbi that I listen to. It is actually, he's a spiritual power who actually then enters me. That is the gamble of my life. And therefore, I begin to have this lived experience that shows me that a prayer to Jesus is better than a visit to a shaman.
Let me ask you a question to continue setting up this context, because this is fantastic. I fear that one of the things that we might do.
Was that on purpose?
I fear how. Let's see what you did there.
Let me introduce you to Colossians.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, you should read Colossians.
We're so good in the Protestant West to separate everything into a law gospel dichotomy.
Oh yeah, you bet.
And so even when I'm hearing you speak of the idea of pleasing the gods in the Colossians context, a pre-Jesus context.
We need another word for this, Vinny. It's, you can say pleasing the gods, but we end up in a lot of people's minds as creating confusion with God. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that is why the principalities and powers live in this area. That's why I would call them the dark spirits. I want a vocabulary that describes this pantheon of spiritual beings that need to be defeated. So you can say the gods, and a Roman might say that, but it becomes, we actually end up with a category confusion. But that's okay.
Okay, and that's helpful as well. Yeah. But in terms of this piety that you spoke of, how is that different? And I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, because I could just hear so many people hearing what you're saying and saying, oh, that's just legalism, that's law. They're pleasing the gods through works. They're working in these Reformation category. And is that what it like? How is that different than maybe a fidelity to Jesus, or I don't know? Just help us parse that out, so we're not thinking in those sorts of categories.
So if you are running in Reformed or Reformation categories, you're thinking about salvation. You're saying that what I need to do is, if you're a legalist, you're going to obey these things, and that's going to guarantee your salvation in heaven. We'll just call it that. In its simple terms, that would be evangelical language, but that's how we would think about it. This is not that. They're not thinking, when I die, am I going to have hope in heaven? Oh, of course you will. This is about survival.
Right.
This is about the here and now. This is about survival. So therefore, before I become a Christian, I'm doing all of these things to just placate those who are going to hurt me. And so therefore, when I move to Christ, I can stop doing all of this stuff. And it isn't so much law and gospel. It is freedom from anxiety producing habits. It's if you had a friend who said, people create rituals. Have you ever come across people like this? And they create rituals and they say, if I do this or that, then everything is going to be fine. I play golf all the time. So.
I was going to say, me and Rob are sports fans. We live in this.
Sporting analogy right there.
Rituals. Yeah. And I would like to go up to, right before a guy hits, I want to go on the tee and I would say, stop that. If you stop that, is your drive going to be shorter? Seriously. That's really trivialized as a very big thing. Right. But you can create a world in which you are doing rituals, not as legalism so much as rituals to appease somebody who is watching you. That's a different thing. It isn't as if you are correcting a ledger. What you're actually doing is fending off a threatening power. That's a very different framework for this. And so the law gospel thing, we can use this in that manner because Christ sets us free. Okay, fine. Freedom from what? I'm saying the original Colossians actually had a different kind of fear that a Zambian would understand, but certainly somebody from California would not.
Yeah, I think if we add to this, and tell me what you think here, Gary, that the first century Roman world was, most of these people are hand to mouth. They're living day by day. Yes. Infant mortality is high. The death rates are high. People are dying. Widows are abundant because men die at age 20 all the time.
Famine,
you have disease everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, man.
All that. So the fear of everyday life is just a reality. Sickness and death are everywhere.
Yeah. Vulnerability is absolutely everywhere. But we haven't even touched on the Roman side of this piece.
Okay.
Because Roman imperial religion is doing the very same thing. There's piggybacking all on this and there. You build a Roman temple in town, and the expectation is that you will go and sacrifice there, and you will actually have Roman iconography all over your house. We've got all evidence of this, from hair clips to chairs, with all of this imagery from Roman religion. And it is no different than the politics of Rome. Religion and politics run together. So therefore, my piety at the Roman temple is contributing to the success of the empire.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if I step away from imperial participation, call it that, and I say that Christ is therefore my Lord, the Son of God. And remember, Augustus was called Son of God. So does that mean I'm no longer loyal or patriotic, or use your word, to the imperial systems?
Right.
Am I no longer supporting imperial flourishing? Who am I? Am I no longer for Rome because I am for Christ? So therefore, this has opened a whole door into empire studies, we call it. So if Christ is Lord with a capital L and has pacified these dark spirits that threaten me, if he is that kind of Lord, then he is also Lord over all of those systems that Rome wants to present. And therefore, he is greater than Augustus. Is he greater than Caesar? What is this? Loyalty to Christ, therefore, makes loyalty to Rome in question. So this is a very big decision.
Yeah.
Because on multiple levels, your world is actually telling you that your piety is necessary for prosperity. It would be, I hear it in American life a little bit today when I find my evangelical friends, for instance, combining politics with religion, and they're suddenly saying to be faithful to Christ is to say the following 5 things, or to join the following 5 things. And it's almost
Gary,
as
can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yeah,
I want to go down that path in just a second.
Yeah.
But some American Christians I can see saying, okay, but what you're saying, Gary, isn't really relevant for me today because we actually know that those principalities and powers don't even exist. So Paul was addressing it to the Colossians. They were afraid of, but I'm not afraid of them because they don't actually exist.
Yeah.
So how would you respond to that idea? That reading of Colossians might be great, might help understand what they were dealing with, but that doesn't matter to me.
2 responses to that, Rob. And it's a great question. It really is. Because if you're a pastor listening to this, you're going to have to do a sermon on things like this.
Yeah.
First is, are you sure that these principalities and powers don't exist? Are you sure? In other words, we have denied them. We've denied that worldview so thoroughly, thanks. It is the Enlightenment.
Yep.
And it is a Western way of thinking that has denied that worldview. But that worldview actually is shared all over the planet. So I know, Rob, you have a lot of influence in ministry in India. And India has this worldview in a thoroughgoing way. So it's only Western Enlightenment that has taken that away. So my first question is, are you sure? Or are these forces disguised to us and operating in another manner? Okay, that's my first question, okay? The second question is this. When you live in a society, do you experience fear? Do you experience anxiety? All of the psychological research for the last 50, 60 years have said anxiety in our culture is huge. What are we anxious about? I guess I'm not sure that the future holds any promise. I'm not sure that I'm not going to be the next guy that's going to have a cardio issue. I'm not sure. So in other words, there are still forces around me that are threatening me and giving me anxiety. And so therefore, this gospel says, do you not believe that Christ is more important than the economic forecast? I think we have a lot of Christians who have, let me take a step back.
Yeah.
When Augustus came into power after the fall of the Republic, and I write about this in the book, I just was so interested in this. His message was eschatological.
Okay.
Rome is back. After the fall of the Republic and the death of Caesar, everybody thought the wheels had come off. And Rome was going down the sewer. And we had lost everything. And so therefore, Augustus actually comes into that scene as I would call it a messianic figure.
Interesting. Okay.
Temples are being built again. There are games again. There are theater. There's an eschatology that goes with it. And therefore, I can say to myself, the world is going to be okay because of Augustus.
And Caesar Augustus, just for those listening, is before the time of Jesus.
But we call the Julian period, this Augustus and Tiberius that follows him, this whole period, though, is sharing in this idea that Rome will save you.
Yeah, okay.
Rome will make things right. The evidence for this is everywhere. Okay, hold on to that. As I'm living in the 21st century, I have to ask myself where my eschatology is.
Yeah.
Who's going to save my world? What is going to save my world? And where is it that I'm going to put my hope? You could put it that way. What do I rely on to reduce my anxiety? That's the really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I suspect that inside of the church, just like in our society, we put this as Americans into things such as government systems, political ideologies, a military that we have, and those that we fear we're going to get rid of those that seem to threaten us. Immigrants come to mind right away.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, you end up with this political eschatology. And the message of Colossians is, look, Christ is bigger than all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, your Jesus is an addendum to the true forces of history. Africa has taught me that Christ should never be an addendum. He is the power that shuts down a shaman. In my society, I have to say, Christ is not an addendum. He actually is the power to which all other powers should be submissive. And the heresy of the church today is that we have embraced a political eschatology and we've lost Christ.
And so that's the next direction I wanted to go, which you started to go and I interrupted you. And that is, I do obviously a lot of work in the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
And what I find amazing is that we have this romantic idea of what the early Christian church was like and don't realize the fact that John's writing them say, you guys have embraced empire.
Yeah.
You've embraced Rome and you don't realize that. Now we look at it and go, Rome is so obviously empire because of the gods and everything. It's obvious. Wait a minute. If it was so obviously empire, then why did the early Christians embrace it? And then that raises the question today of going, have we embraced empire, not realizing that how obvious it is empire, but we don't realize that it's empire. So take now Colossians to the modern church to say, okay, you've already touched on a little bit, how we're embracing empire, how we're embracing the principalities and the powers. And Colossians is writing to us, Paul's writing to us saying, hey, you've already addressed it, but let's put it in that context a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think what we have to do is confess something here, that my life is like a great big backpack. It's got a lot of pockets. It's got one main or two main compartments, and I've got all kinds of stuff in there. I have never cleansed it, really. And so therefore, I've got Jesus in the water bottle pocket.
Oh.
But the truth is that when push comes to shove, when I worry about health or finances, or I worry about the future, and all of these things, I have got lots of stuff tucked away in there, and I'll never really show you what these things are, because that's actually where I have my hope. So I have absorbed what you could call the powers of my world, my day. And so I actually, if the world were falling apart, I think I would hope that democracy would save us.
Yeah.
I hope capitalism will save us. I hope the Supreme Court will come to our rescue. I have all kinds of ways to actually reduce my anxiety. And Jesus is this nice little add-on, and I reach for him when I'm thirsty, and I take a drink and I put him back where he belongs. But the reality is that my life has been seduced. But the reality is that I think we all live with this all of the time. And so therefore, my Christian discipleship is moving Jesus into the main compartment. That's really what my discipleship is, moving Jesus into the main compartment. And I think that's what all of my African students in Zambia were saying to me. Jesus is the main thing. Jesus is not a thing. Jesus is the main thing. And we sense when we're with American missionaries, he ain't the main thing. So therefore, I think you've got to go to environments like that where I suddenly, I can get my own Western worldview dislodged.
Okay.
In this whole conversation, the verse that keeps just popping out at me is probably the one part of the Lord's Prayer that Western Americans don't actually know how to apply, which is, give us this day our daily bread. Because we don't depend on daily sustenance on anything. But that's what keeps popping up on me is, as I'm hearing all these conversations, it's rely on the Father of our Christ to provide for us, not Rome, not the gods, not the pantheon, whatever it might be. And is that a way to maybe reorientate that part of the Lord's Prayer to modern context, where it's like, okay, it might not be you have enough beans and canned food in your pantries, but what are the ways that we're not relying on daily sustenance and we're depending on these other exterior forces to do that for us?
I'm with you, Vinny, spot on, because I think I just blow right over that portion of the prayer and I don't think about it because I have a kitchen stuffed with food.
Yeah.
When as you guys know, I'm in the Middle East a lot, but not just Palestine. I'm from Iraq to Libya. So I've spent a fair bit of time between these two countries and then after this African thing. But it also was true. I made only one trip to India, Rob, and it was New Delhi, and I stayed with Christians. I had a student who was studying there. Anyway.
Good.
Whenever I noticed a pattern in all three of these contexts, that when Christians gathered, they prayed together. It wasn't just a little prayer before the food. That was there for sure. But at night, when we left, they said, let's pray before we say goodbye. And two subjects were always there in the prayer. First was for food. That's really interesting, I thought. They always prayed, Lord, take care of us, sustain us, give us what we need to survive, to live. And I know that these people were in food distress. Okay, food.
Yeah.
Second one was safety, protection. Lord, protect us from those who would want to hurt us. Now, what's really interesting to me is that they were appealing to Christ to not only take care of their provisions for the next day, they were appealing to Christ to give them protection for the next day. And honestly, you guys, I don't pray like that.
Yeah.
I don't think about that. When I get in my car, I ask Christ to guide me as I drive and protect me as I go? No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Because I have my faith in stoplights. I just live in a society that has so orchestrated things that I just don't feel threatened. Anyway, I think that if I was living in the Colossian world, that's why I say fear is a huge, am I going to starve? Yeah. Am I going to be hurt? If I lived in, and I think that world is with us today. We just are living in denial.
Yeah. So now Paul goes in chapter 3, and I think he ties the ethical conduct of chapter 3 to the new creation theme of chapters 1 and 2. Christ is the firstborn over all creation, firstborn from the dead. The idea of that is the new creation. So now you skip to the end of chapter 3, the beginning of chapter 4 with the household codes.
And that's just before you jump so fast.
Okay, absolutely.
Because I know the household codes are just one of the big headaches of Colossians. But the thing is that in Colossians 2, then, the two really critical paragraphs in Colossians begin at 1:15. We've already talked about that, and 2:8.
Okay.
Where Paul is describing what you have to be untangled from, because your discipleship really does mean an untangling. And so you're going to have to do an inventory of your life or your backpack, and you're going to have to throw away some stuff. But this stuff is so dear to you, you simply are going to struggle with this. So if you have in fact died with Christ and you are living in him and he is the thing, he's everything to you,
right? Then
what are you going to do with your religious calendar? Let me just give you as an example.
Yeah, okay.
Right. There's a Roman calendar. And you actually observe these things in the Roman calendar because you've been doing it for 1,000 years. There's a Jewish calendar. When we think these people are the opponents of Paul, are Jewish Hellenists, it's all mangled up with them.
Okay.
So therefore, this means a reordering of the way I live. And that means you have to get untangled from some of these things, such as calendars, such as your dietary laws. We don't think about that either. What about circumcision? What are you going to do about festivals, both Roman and Jewish, which are imposed on you? And so therefore, to be free from fear is going to take courage of a different sort. To disentangle yourself is going to take enormous courage, because you're going to walk away from things that are socially reinforced by your entire world. So in chapter 2, when he's listing out the philosophies, he's not talking about the philosophy the way we think of it. Philosophy is a word that was used to describe a religious system, an ordering of the world around you. It's used for religion as well. So you're going to have to rethink the way you think about reality and life for you. And so he says you either are going to submit to all of the old stuff, or you're going to submit to Christ and the new reality that he brings. So that sets you up for Paul then saying is, okay, I'm not going to be Roman as much as I thought I was, and I'm not going to be a part of these mystery religions with their shamans. So I have to get rid of what is earthly and adopt what is divine. And so in chapter 3, he says, okay, so what are we going to measure here? We're not going to measure simply the raw powers that are promoted by all of the sorcerers of the principalities and the powers, but instead, we're going to be known for compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. And to the average person, you think, to my students in Zambia, it was like, that's boring. I want to belong to something that really knocks down the powers. And what Colossians says is, Christ has already done it, dude.
Yeah. Oh.
Your job is to imitate him in his conduct.
Yeah.
Not to become violent. Christ has got that one.
Yeah.
But for you to reflect deeply rooted new values. Now we come to the household orders.
Okay.
Because that means my conduct as a citizen in my polis, my city, my demeanor has got to be different. I don't walk by the altar to Rome in front of the temple and show piety. I just keep walking. So therefore, when I live my lives with my wife, my children, my slaves, everybody had slaves. Therefore, I have got to be a person that conducts myself with a newly ordered set of values. All right, household codes. Go for it, Rob.
I was going to ask how the household codes fit into this idea in your understanding in terms of being this new creation people, this Christ-like people, distinct from the Roman world, or have argued that the household codes have this new creation understanding, which is reinstating or returning us to the Eden ideal, reversal of Genesis 3, returning us to the Eden ideal, and this restoration of all humanity and equality. So I think you might have already addressed it, but do you have more to add then in terms of what these household codes are doing in terms of the Christian conduct in the Greco-Roman world?
Let's just explain. Household codes are what we've got here at the end of Colossians 3:18, when we refer to wives, children, slaves, all of that. This is old stuff. Every Roman and Greek ethicist had the very same categories. Everybody knows that. All the scholars know this. Paul now is saying, okay, every child in school knows that these are important categories by which you test your ethics. Okay, fine. So if everybody knows these categories, let's now revisit these categories and ask ourselves, by the categories we've been taught, do we reorder our behavior given that Christ is our Lord? If Christ is directing my inner life, then how do I live with relationship with my wife, for instance? And you and I could digress at length about husbands and wives inside of this world. And there's a great deal written about this. But what you find is that Paul reordering this, so you have it especially in Ephesians, which is written at the same time as Colossians, that in one matter, what you have is the sharing of mutual respect.
Exactly.
And in a world that is severely patriarchal, in a world in which women have so little power, we have examples of some women having power. I'm not denying that. Sure. But for the rank and file, the gospel means that I now rethink how society has taught me that I am the father of the family, the pater familias. I am the pater. That is a very big word. Augustus was the pater of Rome, the father of Rome. And therefore, you are the father of your family. That doesn't mean dad. That means you're the man.
Yeah.
And so consequently, Paul revisits this and he says, okay, so you're the man. So husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I can treat my wife harshly. Are you kidding me? That's what I've been told since I was a child. I'm lucky to be a boy. Love my wife? What kind of love are we talking about here? And in Paul's other writings, he fills it out more fully. Love like Christ loved. What? What kind of love is that? Okay, lots of emotion? No, it is love measured by sacrifice. So in the household codes, what Paul is saying is that there needs to be a reordering of our conduct based on modeling given to us by Christ instead of either the Imperium of Rome or the cultural forces you've grown up with. So therefore, let's just take slaves. That is the toughest one.
Yeah.
We could go on forever about slavery. I spent a lot of time writing about slavery. I have a whole section on the book about slavery that I was so riveted by slavery and how common it was. No one thought about it really as a problem. It was just common. It was everywhere. So Paul has to back into this thing very carefully. And when he says, slaves, masters, treat your slaves with justice. What? Really? Treat them fairly. He says this in 4:1. You're like, what? Really? When you read descriptions of slave treatment from this period, and then you compare it to a sentence like that, suddenly you can say, Paul has just upended a set of attitudes towards slaves that we would never expect. That actually sets up Philemon. When Paul actually says, this runaway slave, Onesimus, Philemon comes out of the same period, same time, same setting. Philemon, he's actually in Colossae. So treat him as a brother? This is crazy talk.
Yeah.
This is crazy talk. You mean to tell me we're going to begin thinking about this standard institution of the entire Roman Empire, and we're going to talk about slaves as brothers, be treated fairly and justly? Crazy talk. But that's exactly what Christ is calling to you, a reordering of your conduct so that your conduct imitates Christ.
All right. So I'm just thinking, man, I want this podcast to be in a multi-part series, but the good news is you have a commentary coming out, so we could actually go and engage in the commentary and dig in further if we want. So we'll talk about that at the end so we could get that kind of information.
This is like embedded advertising.
That's what we're doing here. Hey, college for your grandkids isn't going to pay for itself.
Exactly.
You got to sell the
My next girlfriend.
Nice. So as we start, we've already sprinkled through topics of application in modern day connection, but let's definitely land there. In terms of the church hearing a sermon on this, I know I've taught through this book. I've taught through, you can't get to chapter 1 and it's all about the supremacy of Christ. Like you said, it's that Nicaea type thing, which is, it's true stuff. It's there.
Yeah, sure.
But what are the things that we are ignoring? And that if you were to preach a sermon series through Colossians right now at your church, what are you preaching to say, okay, this is what we need to be hearing? And not just your church, but the churches of America.
Yeah. There is a sentence from John Stott, who is a wonderful Christian intellectual from my parents' generation, actually, but I really think John Stott is fabulous still. But he said, I think this is true. We are not expecting enough of Jesus. In other words, we've made God too small. That was somebody else's line. But we've actually said, no, Jesus Christ is less in our imagination than we're willing to admit. And Colossians is saying, you had better rethink that entire program for yourself, because he is more than you ever imagined. We make him less than we expect, but actually he's more than you ever imagined. And if actually the Lordship of Christ takes over your life and you are embedded entirely in his life, it's going to rearrange you so completely, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. I think that's what Colossians actually says to us. We have compromised our identity in Christ so completely, we have created a Christian culture that is almost indistinguishable from the secular culture around us.
Yep. And I would say in Revelation language, we're in bed with the beast. Yeah,
we're in bed with the beast. Nice way to put it. There's one of my favorite commentaries in the whole world is Karl Barth's commentary on Romans. It's after World War I. He is furious about the destruction of Europe. And the commentary is an amazing indictment of secular religious culture in Europe. Anyway, and he says, what is the incarnation? You need a brand new image. And because he just came out of a war, he said, the incarnation is a bomb dropped from heaven that has left a crater in the middle of our world. And that crater, what can we do with that crater? What can we say to ourselves? We can say to ourselves, that crater is not natural. That crater came from somewhere, and it was an explosion that came from afar. Okay. Now, the problem is that we have turned this crater into a tourist site. We sell artifacts. We sell tickets to visit it. We make songs about the crater, and we talk about it as if it happened 2,000 years ago. But this crater has been emptied of its power. Because actually, if you understand what made that crater, it is going to sober you so completely. Anyway, what Bart was doing is he was trying to reimagine this with a category that everybody knew because bombs had fallen all over Europe. So for us, I think in some manner, we have got to reimagine what the incarnation meant for the Colossians in their world, but reimagine the importance of what the incarnation means for ours. And that is the hard work of every pastor in their context.
That's so good. Let me finish maybe with this. Colossians 1, I think is so critical here. Verse 28 and 29, we proclaim him, admonishing every person and teaching every person with all wisdom, so that we may present every person complete in Christ. For this purpose I labor, striving according to his power, which works mightily within me.
The power that is working mightily within me. There it is. Thank you, Zambia.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thanks.
Wonderful.
I know that you have a website people could go to, GaryBurge.org, Burge.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
When is the commentary coming out, the Colossians commentary?
It's in production right now. I have an editor at Cambridge who is hacking away. I am predicting January of 26. Cambridge is really meticulous about this stuff, and they don't hurry to meet deadlines. They want things that are published that stay for a long time. So it's probably in January, February of 26, I expect. The website, thanks for mentioning it. The website that I have is a website for people who just want to get to know me. That's all it is. And I have books that I published there, but I'm not trying to sell books with it because I have people who want to know, should we have Gary as a speaker or as a writer of a chapter? That's what happens on the web. I'm really impressed if 100 people look at it every month.
That's not bad.
And that's nothing the way websites go.
Yeah.
But they're coming there for a purpose, not entertainment, not to buy, but they're coming there to say, I wonder if I would like this guy.
Sure. The Colossians Philemon commentary is going to come out hopefully January, February 26th through Cambridge. Yeah. You also have, Rob mentioned, a Galatians Ephesians commentary.
Right. That just came out. That is out right now. And that is Galatians and Ephesians. Was a beautiful setup for me working on Colossians, but that is out. It's been out for about 2 months.
Okay, great.
Nice. And then you just have a whole slew of other works that I'm sure someone has probably read some of your stuff. They might not even know it because it's sprinkled throughout so many different books and resources. So we just thank you for what you've given the church over the last number of decades. It's been a true blessing there.
All right. It's great to be with you guys. I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Fun to be here with you.
Thanks, Gary. All right. Hey, hope everyone enjoyed this. Share this episode with your friends because I think this is a good one. And we will be back next week as we jump into... Are we going straight into First Thessalonians? We're going straight into First Thess.
Oh, that'll be fun. And Rob, that's just right up your alley. With
maybe a little bit. I was going to say, Gary, you might want to get Cambridge to get the commentary published before the rapture, but it is what it is. At least those who are left behind can read it.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. There you
go. All right. Take care.
Thanks.
See you later.
All right, everyone. See ya.
I want to thank you for joining us on today's podcast, and we would love for you to share the work of Determined Truth with others. Please follow this podcast and give a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your review will go a long way towards helping others find this podcast. Then share it with others so that we can get the word of the gospel of the kingdom to more people.